My two earliest memories are being forced into a hot garage by my family and earning a blue generic first place convenience store ribbon at a local high school's dance camp. Consequently and respectively, I remember my two earliest thoughts being, these people aren't nice around here, and I'm a pretty good dancer, aren't I? By the age of 8, I had devised a plan to escape my abusive home. I would become a professional dancer. I created a nutritional plan for myself and memorized balletic positions with books I borrowed from my elementary school library. I recall a particularly humiliating incident when my librarian's voice chimed in cadence with the machine's beep played by the swiping of my book across its laser. I had reached the recheckout limit and must leave the dance books with her immediately. She must have held her palm out to me for me to surrender, but all I feel in the memory is her tugging the books from my limb. I took to creating mixtape CDs and coordinated each song with a specific activity meant to further me along in my goals. One song was for cardio, the next for stretching, the last for strength. Around the same time that I was spending hours in my room performing sit-ups and stretching splits, my father was deployed to Kuwait in the post-September 11th crisis. His absence announced itself with a swelling of my mother's agitation and punishments. I was afraid of her on the day that I had removed my outer sweater and revealed a worn t-shirt meant to stay unseen at school without her permission. We are Hispanic, and that day it was pressed into me that we must always wear shirts with collars or keep our sweaters on to not garner any negative attention or rumors about our ethnicity. I was 10 years old and acutely aware that my misstep of improper clothing brought shame to the family, and the fear of my mother's temper grew. Tension thickened in my home with my temporarily single mother, so I danced to pervade my focused goals into existence. That summer, I volunteered to assist youth classes, attend my own, and anchor the day's training with the most advanced classes saved for the teenagers. Those days lasted from about 1:30 to 10 p.m., and I did this 5 days a week. I declined acquaintance birthday party invitations on the weekends, saving those days for training. On weekends, I plunged into the studio as early as 5:30 in the morning and hovered until the last dance ran at 5:30 in the evening. By age 13, I began to accept scholarships to train in both New York and Los Angeles in the summers. It was my senior year in high school when the physical violence in my house escalated. One school night, my father took a trash bag and had me place all of my dance clothing inside of it. This is his gambit. I watched him take a hammer to a few of my items. He had to place the item down and hit it multiple times, chase after the item, place it back down, and hit again. He took scissors to monetary symbols and other paperwork. While he performed these acts meant to terrorize, I used my imagination, and after choosing a Southern California university to attend in the fall, I pored over its website and introducing myself to the awards given out to classes before mine. I visualized myself receiving the Outstanding Freshman Dancer of the Year award, while my father's hammer lugged. One school night close to my high school graduation, my sleep is punctured by the lights coming up in my room. My mother is very angry with me, and she takes to physical action while I'm still tangled in my blankets. As she slapped me, I concentrated on my potential. The university I'd be attending was so proximal to Los Angeles, I harbored focus for the monumental change it could provide for me. By the end of my time at X University, I received the Outstanding Freshman Dancer of the Year award, Phoenix Award, Outstanding Choreographer, and Outstanding Performance awards. I moved to Los Angeles, where I was cast as a soloist for an experimental opera. It took place downtown, and when I arrived on set, I properly vacated my breakfast in the trash bin next to my dressing trailer. I'd been eating from expired sets of pre-made meals my coworkers from my retail job tossed out to save on grocery bills. Years of eating expired foods and retail working ensued until my summit wholly presented itself. I became a principal dancer for XYZ Company. It is the only full-time dance company for classically trained multi-form dancers in the United States. And no one came to our shows. Our audiences were at 10% capacity. We were dancing for no one. An interviewer for the show asked me how it felt to represent myself as a Hispanic woman, and I thought of the migrant children detained at our southern borders. I thought of how far away I felt from them and how I was reprimanded for wearing a dirty t-shirt to school at a young age, in fear of resembling them or being confused for an immigrant. The same year, I left my role as a principal dancer in pursuit of a more meaningful use of my gifts. I experienced my father's hands around my neck for the first time. When he choked me, I experienced powerlessness. That event left me unable to ignore the call to action for those who cannot evade their hardships with dancing. My ironclad grip on the vision for myself shifted. What if the years of dedication to a craft, severe discipline, and ability to imagine a better future could be transformed into protecting the rights of others? Could my survival be proof that I can help others when their power has been taken away from them? And could I embrace my Hispanic ethnicity for what it brings with its privileges and confusion? I need to make the world a safer place for someone who looks like me, and I need to wedge myself between those children and their abusers detaining them. Wow, this one's powerful. Feedback, thoughts? One comment. Yeah, go ahead, please.
I was going to say, after hearing you read this one out loud, it almost feels like there's like little tidbits of things that, like, I know somebody wrote could be a diversity statement, but it's like a little bit about being Hispanic, a little bit about being a dancer, a little bit about abuse. And I'm just curious if this falls into the category of like talking about too many things, or maybe is better as a diversity statement.
That's a great comment. Yeah. I could see this being divided into multiple statements as well. There's a lot going on here. And I think the material here is really powerful. And I think that the specifics, the details really make it come to life. I found this one very emotionally compelling. And especially in contrast to the previous one, I feel like this one's getting closer to what I would love to see because it's so personal. I agree with the comment in the chat that it reads as a diversity statement. I see that angle there. And that could come, there's multiple references to ethnicity being Hispanic. So that could be drawn out in certain ways, especially the references to clothing, and like the idea of clothing and stereotypes coming in, that could be drawn out and you could go deeper on that in a separate statement potentially. And then you could also, I'm thinking this person could take the dance as a separate statement. They could take the abuse as a separate statement as well. So there's a lot of routes that someone could take with this. And then I also see a comment here about the dancing jargon. So if is there too much dancing jargon here? Maybe. I think the different awards being listed, I wouldn't necessarily need the parentheses, or I wouldn't even need the list of the laundry list of awards there either.
I also kind of was missing a little bit of the why. I think they had a really powerful story, but they didn't, again, relate it back to law school and like why that has, I know at the end they kind of mentioned that, but it was like, and then I want to go to law school because of this. It should be kind of incorporated in a way where they tie it in with some of the things that they've experienced and the resiliency that came out of being in that situation and how they overcame that.
Yeah, it does feel kind of thrown in at the end. And there are two routes that you could take. You could either remove that last bit altogether because it doesn't necessarily need to be directly tied back, or the idea of simply sympathizing with others who are abused, having gone through abuse oneself. That alone could be enough.
And it reads like a creative writing. So like if you're a creative writer and you have an imagination, you can definitely piece it together. So if you're not like a one-track mind person, you can definitely see how it goes. But I think for admissions, you want to tie everything in, but you want to be a little bit more detailed because everyone's mind isn't the same. So I could imagine as I was reading this, as she's saying this person is slapping me, like if you watch film, if you're really into film analysis, you would imagine this person getting slapped and their imagination going to another place. And you can imagine that. But as but for everyone doesn't, when they read, they don't actually, conduct that in their mind. They're just like, what? I don't get it. So I definitely get it, but it's not too much. It's just like you were saying earlier about how you decided not to disclose abuse and for various reasons. It's kind of like, okay, you're talking about this. So like everyone was saying, like, why law school? Because this is a touchy topic. And then how they talked about immigration, which is important. It would have been nice to hear a little bit more about like, oh, you wear dirty clothes. Well, why did you wear dirty clothes? Like what was going on? I don't hear anything about economic diversity. So I don't know if you grew up poor. You can't assume that because you went through domestic violence, you were poor. But I know you're poor because you wore a dirty shirt. Or maybe you weren't, so you don't really get to, as this person is telling us about their life, it's already, it would have been nice to hear a little bit more, but she couldn't put all of that in there at one time. So I don't know if that helps.
I think the next step for this person, because she has a lot of, again, those experiences and the analogies, I would say cut the analogies, be concise, because when you're saying respectfully and consequently, that's basically saying the same thing. So just kind of check with like the grammar that everything is cohesive in that way to cut down. But also I would say that particularly for this person, why. You have to, you know, when you go through an experience, just like write down and jot like what the experience has, you know, made you. Has it made you more resilient? Are you now more empathetic to when other victims come forward about their own abuse, right? So like, yes, you can talk about, you know, domestic violence, but I think that this person for their next step needs to say, you know, how has this shaped me as a person, and how is this going to shape me in my career?
Yeah, I think there's room to cut some of the details that pull us out of the story, and some of the language as well. Like if the language is too formal and it's too professional, I mean, it's great to show the use of vocabulary sometimes, but it can go too far at other times and pull us out of the moment and pull us out of the emotion. So yeah, I agree that if someone's using two words when one will do, or using a more advanced word when a simpler word will do, that's, I think, some room for improvement. I'm thinking about some of the details as well. Like, this is the only full-time dance company and no one came to our shows. Like, that's interesting, but does it really matter in terms of a personal statement? That's just a detail in this person's life. I find that the details of like eating expired food that other people threw out, like that's a way to indicate hardship. It's a way to indicate poverty. And I see more reason to include that than the fact that the dance company isn't that popular. But then the dirty t-shirt, again, another personal detail that at least makes it come to life more, where we can picture the author in that situation.
You know, I got something else from the fact that the dance company wasn't really having a big audience. Like when you continue to do something like time after time without necessarily like the glory, like she says with the awards, or like with like the fame of doing it, but like for the passion of doing it, and applied passion like standard. I don't know if that makes sense.
I get what you mean. Yeah, that's a good angle on it, and I could imagine the author had that as a reason to mention this as well. I guess the point is, like, how many different things can you communicate in one personal statement? Is that you're dancing for the love of the craft? Is that you're dancing and winning awards despite poverty and hardship? Is it that you dance to process the abuse that you've suffered? Is that an outlet for it? There's a lot of routes that you could take with it, but there's only so many things you can put into one statement. And I would think that it's possible to tighten this up enough where a lot of those things can be communicated, but we have to make it really clear and make it flow and avoid so much of the chronology being the orientation. I'd rather have a theme that ties it together than simply chronology being it. Like, I was here, I moved there. When I got here, here's what happened next. And those statements that just or like, this happened, then that happened, then this other thing happened, it can feel kind of disjointed and feel like you're trying to summarize everything. And I'm thinking back to the previous statement we covered, where that statement, I think, really suffered from this and that and this other thing. And yeah, maybe they happened in that exact order, but if there's no theme tying them together, it's going to feel like, as someone said, feel choppy. I'm going to read another comment here in the chat. Ram is asking, I asked why, when asked about how it was to represent herself as an Hispanic woman, why did that spark her to think of immigrants detained at the borders? There's a connection missing there. How does she go from using dance as an escape from abuse to thinking about migrants? I agree that connection wasn't that clear to me either. We have the interviewer for the show asking that question, and the author thought of the migrant children detained, and then being in fear of resembling them or being confused as a migrant with a dirty t-shirt. So I see that as being the connection here, but I agree that it's not that smooth, and it feels like it's kind of thrown in there, given the surrounding context is all about the dancing.
For me personally, one of the things that stood out to me about this piece was just like that, I guess, like that analogy between, how she worked hard into becoming a dancer. I just feel like you can just draw so much correlation between going to law school and working while I feel that you can just draw so much analogy between being a dancer and going to law school. I mean, not everyone could be a dancer. That takes a lot of commitment. That just takes a lot of effort to do. And I believe that just kind of demonstrates to, like a grad school or a law school, that you're able to, not only work hard, but also to achieve. So I think that's just something that maybe emphasize more.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.